Hey, thanks for checking out the Future Fox podcast. Today's guest is Sue Sava. She is the president and CEO of PEBC, who we've had the luxury of working with and creating business for. Really cool nonprofit that's doing really great things for public schools. So make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and enjoy the episode.
Awesome. Sue, well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming today. Sue with PEBC, why don't you tell people what PEBC stands for,
Okay.
who you are, and what you guys do.
Okay. Thanks so much for that. The CEO and president of Public Education and Business Coalition. My name is Sue Sava, and I am a fourth generation teacher from New Jersey. And I love everything about PEBC, and I think we make a huge impact in the world of education. We can talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We were founded in 1983 as a response by the Denver business community to Ronald Reagan's A Nation at Risk. Okay. And many things have not changed or improved in education in 40 years, and many things have. Early childhood education has improved, for example, and literacy and the ways our teachers are trained in addressing literacy needs has greatly improved, especially here in the state of Colorado. So we could talk about that. Our three main bodies of work are policy, which I help to lead, teacher preparation, and professional learning. The professional learning team has actually been in 47 states in the last 10 years.
Whoa.
Yes. So
that's almost all of them.
That's almost all of them. I don't know the three we're missing.
Alaska, Hawaii, probably too.
We're in Hawaii.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we picked them up this year.
Must be a random one. Maybe Canada. I hear Canada's going to be the new, is about to be a state.
Or Greenland.
Yeah, Greenland or Mexico.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, apparently we're going to get a few new states, apparently. So.
Nailed it.
We'll see. That's okay. So explain what professional learning. What is that? So that's not self-explanatory. I feel like the other ones are a little more self-explanatory.
Thank you. Agreed. Professional learning is a way that you continue to improve your practice as an educator. Okay. And we do everything from, we call it pre-K to para. So the youngest teachers in the profession who are just getting their teacher licensure with us through superintendents and school board members. And we do training on everything from facilitation to real discrete content, for instance, around math, around science, around literacy.
What does discrete content mean?
Drilled down to what the state's standards are.
Oh, okay.
In each of the 47 states.
Wow. That's a lot to keep up with.
It is. It is. Our team is tremendously talented, wicked smart.
And it's changing every year. They're tweaking it every year, right?
Changing all the time.
Yeah.
And so you have to really work with leaders in each context that you go into. And when we're in a city in California, that's really different than when we're in urban Manteca, California. And so, what are the cultural expectations and norms of the district you're working in? And they can be really different. And actually, that's really true here because we're one of 7 constitutionally mandated local control states.
Okay. What does that mean?
It means that we don't have a lot of top-down education edicts that we have to follow. And 2/3 of our state are rural districts. Yeah. And what is doable in a large urban area or district is not the same because it's not the same capacity in a small district like Cortez or Mancos where we work. So you have to have a lot of cultural humility when you're going into a district to find out what that local context needs, what their strengths are, how we map assets to see, look, there's evidence of all of these investments that we see in your professional learning. Let's help you to leverage your assets to get to where you need to go to fill the gaps.
Okay, cool. That's great. And you guys have been around for 40 years?
40 years.
I didn't realize that.
Isn't that amazing?
That's very impressive, yeah.
Something that's interesting, I think, is that when I learned about Public Education and Business Coalition, I was a third, fourth, and fifth grade teacher. And when I heard that it was founded with a grant from the Ford Foundation, and they put out grants to help address the data that was demonstrated in A Nation at Risk, I actually had written my first, I don't know what you would call it, policy memo, maybe. I was a wonky kind of kid.
Okay.
It's like 12 years old in my parents' attic, to A Nation at Risk.
Oh my gosh.
Because I remember watching Bill Bennett give the speech.
Okay.
And being really inspired.
Because that's what every 12-year-old is watching, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
such a dork.
Every 12-year-old was just staying up late to watch that speech and to write a memo, a little policy. Hey,
it's pretty
great
ridiculous.
speech. I just have a few pointers I wanted, a few changes I was hoping we could work out.
Yeah. To the education czar in the country.
Yes. That's very funny. All right. So you've sort of known you wanted to be in the education space for a long time.
I did. As I said, I'm a fourth generation
Is your mom a teacher?
My mom's a teacher.
Okay.
3 out of 4 of my grandparents were teachers.
Oh, wow. Okay.
2 of them inner city Philly. One taught French, one taught Latin. And I had the really good fortune of being an athletic recruit to Princeton.
Okay.
At which point,
Look at you.
Well, no,
Wow.
it was all about the field hockey thighs, man. and my whole family said, you can't be a teacher. Like, we're not wasting, this Princeton education on becoming a teacher, and you'll struggle to survive. So then what do you think happens when you tell a kid not to do something?
That's the first thing you do.
You have a 4-year-old.
Yeah. You just go, you can't do that. Just like, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. And that's exactly how I responded to that.
Yeah.
So I came here to teach skiing because most of my friends went to Wall Street, and I just knew that wasn't a fit for me. But since I had been instructed not to be an educator, I was kind of fighting that. And I lived in Breckenridge and taught skiing, and I loved teaching the littles. I just loved it.
Aw.
I know. And then I came down and I saw this school, Stanley, which is now at 3rd and Quebec in the city. And, the hair on my head stood up. I just absolutely knew that I was going to be a teacher, that I was going to learn how to do it in the way that I saw them model it. And it turns out that Stanley had run the first alternative licensure program in the state.
Okay.
And that's the program that we run now at PEBC.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What a small world. Right?
Small world. Yes.
That's amazing.
A little bit of synergy, perhaps.
So talk about the business coalition talk about the BC of the PEBC.
Yes.
Explain what that is to me and how that plays out practically.
Okay, I would love to. So the business component of PEBC is about helping business leaders who are on our board, and we also have a group called the PEBC Catalysts who are very interested in getting upskilled in education advocacy.
Okay.
It's about helping business to see that teachers really have the future of the economy and the workforce in their hands, right? So every Nobel laureate had excellent teachers. Every scientist had an excellent teacher. And so if you think about educators as having the future workforce, then educators are worthy of being invested in.
Yeah.
And in a local control state where we have things like TABOR, Taxpayer Amended Bill of Rights, we're not like Massachusetts or New Jersey where we put $28,000 per pupil into a district's coffers to educate a kid. We're about a third of that.
Wow.
And so business plays a really important role in advocating, especially for education funding in Colorado. And our board, from the minute the bylaws were established, has had business leaders as well as education leaders. And I think it's very unique in that way because we have very rich cross-sector conversations about, where is the message not making it to the voters? And what do parents need to know when there's a new ballot initiative coming out about how it's going to affect my kid in my school? So we have Kaiser Permanente on our board. We have JP Morgan Chase, Alpine Bank, First Bank, Westera. We have a large presence with DaVita, 2 different board members. And so, we're always helping business to find a way to support educators and education in a way that meets their social mission.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they want to.
Yes.
They, a lot of them
Yes.
want to be involved, want to make a difference in their community,
Yes.
right? I
Yes.
do on a much smaller scale
Absolutely.
than Chase Bank, but you know what I
Yes,
mean?
absolutely.
I want to make a difference. I just don't always know how to do that.
I want to know how.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it's a funny story. I was interviewed once for Channel 9 for Business Bits with Ryan Fraser. And as he was packing up his cameras, he and the cameraman were having this conversation like, where are you going tonight, Flightco? And I was like, what are you doing at Flightco? And Ryan said, I'm making my own beer. And I said, for teachers. And he said, okay. So we made the Hall Pass Hazy
Oh, love it.
IPA.
Okay. Nice.
$2 beer for teachers, Flightco.
Okay.
And I think that's PEBC's sweet spot is like, no matter whether you're an individual who's a dad of a 4-year-old
Yeah.
or you're a brew pub owner,
Yeah.
like those guys did for us at Flightco, or DeVita, where we bring groups of volunteers into Aurora Public Schools so that teachers can go to the bathroom and make a phone call. Or Kaiser Permanente, where we had $1.5 million in grants for mental health for teachers the last 2 years. We can find a way to plug you in.
Yeah.
That you'll be excited
You guys are,
about.
it seems like you guys are about solutions.
Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
Very solution-based.
Creating solutions.
No time to
prob-
admire the problem.
Finding problems, finding solutions, connecting people who can make those solutions
That's
happen.
exactly right. We're a broker in that way.
Yeah.
Brokering, the unique solutions.
Bridging that gap between the public education system and the business world.
Yes.
Okay.
We're in a really interesting state, and I guess state of affairs as well as state of Colorado. And while we did repeal Gallagher, Tabor really does limit the amount of money that flows into the state education fund. So for many years, we ran what was called the BS factor, so budget stabilization factor, but you can imagine why it was called the BS factor.
Yeah.
And it's money that had been borrowed from the state education fund to keep the coffers afloat. And we just, for the first time, at the end of the last legislative session, paid off the BS factor. So
Okay.
we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, as it were,
Okay.
and taking money out of the state education fund. So I think that, people don't do their best thinking in times of scarcity,
Yeah.
and it can create really unhealthy.
That's true in in the public sector and in the business world, private sector.
I'm sure, right?
Yes.
Like
you make
killer
bad
beyond the menu,
Yeah, it's just like when you're in you just will say yes to everything out of this like scarcity, right?
Yes.
And it's like that's not a good way to run a business. It's not a
No.
good way to run an education system either.
No, it's rooted in fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but you guys always sort of have that because of the budget limitations. You're always so how do you battle that?
Right. I think that we in PEBC have a very unique niche because we operate in a very nonpartisan way. And so what we do is we set up really unique collaborations. And so we're...
Give me an example.
Okay, an example would be that typically education reformers, people who start charter schools, like PEBC has started a charter school, SOAR Charter School in Green Valley Ranch, don't agree politically with the union.
Okay.
And sometimes there's conversation about public resources going into ed reform initiatives like charter schools. Well, PEBC is hungry to bring together those factions to say it's about the kid
Yeah.
who's right in the middle of this conversation,
Yeah.
lest we forget. And so we do a lot of kind of barrier.
They become collateral damage in that. Huh?
They become collateral damage. And so we do a lot of barrier busting and bring unique bedfellows together. We've run legislation. During the pandemic, we brought the Joint Budget Committee into weekly convenings that
Okay.
were obviously virtual with teachers because we said, I bet the first thing that the JBC members might not say about teachers is innovative. So let's bring the teachers in and say, what are the innovations happening right now in the disruption
Yeah.
that you do not want to let go of when the pandemic ends? And after 18 months, that resulted in Senate Bill 21-185 concerning Colorado's educator workforce bill. The JBC ran the bill, which is pretty unusual. They took 6 out of 16 of the teacher recommendations,
Wow.
codified them in legislation. And the Republican who ran the JBC, Senator Bob Rankin, said to me, how much money do you think it'll take to run these 6 recommendations a year at the state level? And I said, 3 million. And he said, how about 13.3 a year?
Wow.
So the state then funded 13.3 million a year, which will sunset in 10 years.
Yeah.
So hopefully a total of about 130 million for the teacher innovations.
Cool. Yeah.
That they
that's
requested.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we like to give teachers a megaphone and
Yeah.
a microphone and a podium and
Opportunity, connections to the people who are voting for these
That's
things.
right. Social capital.
Yeah.
And surprise people with just how innovative and resourceful our educators are. 'Cause
Yeah.
They have
Well, they're
to
on the
be-
ground floor,
Yeah.
right? So they should be listened to.
They are.
They're the ones who are seeing it, and they're in the muck. They're doing it day to day.
That's
they
right.
know. That's great. So you guys are giving them a voice.
We're giving them a voice. And that, my husband is a 2nd grade teacher in Denver Public Schools. And, watching over the pandemic, he was teaching virtually as well as in person because sometimes
Was that just a nightmare?
it was a total nightmare. And this is what I would hear. I'd be in the living room having a meeting and I'd hear, Jimmy, put that down.
Oh.
Jane, stop biting the pencil. Mariko, put the camera back on. I can't see you. That's all right all day long.
For 2nd graders?
For 2nd graders, 8 years old.
That's crazy.
That man was asleep at 4:00 every day.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So
We
like,
ran teachers off. I mean, I feel like probably burned them out during the pandemic.
it was
Hard though, but what are you going to do,
Well,
They're
and as parents, what were we going to do?
Yeah.
I think the part of the post-pandemic story that we are not telling well enough yet is that as a result of the pandemic, my husband's 2nd graders at the end of the pandemic came in looking like kindergartners developmentally because they had not been in school.
Yeah.
And they had not been socialized. They had not been taught how to share, to have discourse, dialogue, engage with people with different perspectives.
Yeah.
And so it's taken a toll.
Yeah, I remember even just like their controversy of putting kids in masks and them not learning communication and development and recognizing people's facial expressions and emotions.
Yes.
And, yeah.
I'm really happy that you mentioned that because what's interesting is the attrition rates for teachers were highest at the end of last year
Okay.
than they've ever been in the state of Colorado.
So we've sort of recovered a little bit from that.
Well, I think teachers left. It was a teacher exodus at the end of last year. So the Colorado Education Association says it's not a teacher shortage anymore. It's a teacher exodus. So when you said the teachers were burned out, I mean, they just thought, why would I do this when I can make more at McDonald's?
Yeah. I don't have to put up with
I don't have to
all of this.
Right. And the parents aren't happy and the book bans are.
Because they got into it for teaching. And I imagine the actual teaching is probably 20%, 30%. And then it's all the red tape and everything else they have to deal with.
And there's a lot of...
what is the biggest burden for teachers right now that you think is an easy solution?
Easy solution. That just changed my thinking. A doable?
Yeah.
solution?
Something that has like a possibility of being resolved.
I got one.
Okay.
I think one of the hardest things for teachers is what you named, like the book bans, the masks, no masks, vaccine, no vaccine, took a toll and is taking a toll in a very polarized community, right? And teachers are an easy target. So a good friend of mine, Rico Munn, was the superintendent of APS. And when people would talk about school violence, Rico would say, no, it's community violence that is happening to our schools because we're really vulnerable, right? So we get targeted. We're really vulnerable. It's the same thing with hyper-polarized politics right now. We hired the Commissioner of Education, Dr. Katie Anthus, pretty much as soon as she retired. The average commissioner in the United States makes it about 3 years. Her tenure was 7.5 years.
Okay.
And she had death threats. So there were sheriffs posted at her house every night. Because of masks, no masks, vaccines, no vaccines. Some people were so upset that schools were open, and some people were so upset that schools were closed. Right? So
and recognize that everyone's just trying to do their best.
Everyone is trying to do their best.
Trying to. There's no good answer.
There is no good answer.
I didn't have a super strong opinion because I recognize how hard of a decision that is, and you're going to make a group of people unhappy no matter what you do.
No matter what you do.
Right.
And so when
you have to just do what you think is right.
You have to do what you think is right.
Yeah.
And sometimes in a massive system, you have to do what you think is right for the majority, right?
Yeah.
Like that is democracy. That's the heart of our democracy. But when Katie Katie retired, and I said, how long do I have to give you before I talk to you about a job? And she said a year. I called her a month later. And I said, how's your sabbatical? It's over. But part of what you're saying about, like, you know, how do you help with those solutions is Katie and I put our heads together, and Katie said, I think the experience of running a polarized state board of education in a microcosm, teachers are experiencing that every day, right? With the families and the parents and the guardians. Why don't I, her being Katie, develop a body of work around how to help teachers navigate polarization? And I said, done, sold, you're hired. So we have rolled out this work at PEBC forward.
Again, that's just not even what they should be doing, though. It's sad that they have to do that, because that shouldn't be part of their job.
Right.
They should just, all they should be worrying about is educating our children.
Right. And when you said what percentage of their day is what?
Yeah.
I mean, that is the number one factor for the teacher exodus. So we know we have to address it with teachers. We have to address it with
simplify their job.
We have to simplify their jobs. We have to upskill them. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Katie studied, you know, hostage negotiators from around the world to build this body of work.
Depressing.
But the solution is there.
Yeah.
Which is, okay, well, I guess teachers do need these skills for navigating a highly polarized environment and not being afraid of conflict, but understanding that we can have healthy conflict and that diverse perspectives, when channeled appropriately, are really healthy to bring to the table. That's what PEBC is all about, right? And so I'm really excited about that work. Katie's been keynoting Dr. Anthus in D.C., in New York.
Oh, cool.
We're doing a PBS airing of Undivide Us at CSU Spur. February 5th, and we're doing facilitated discussions afterwards. So that work is on fire now, and I'm excited, because in a way it is depressing that teachers need those skills, and it's the reality.
Yeah.
And when I go back to the beginning,
you don't want to
of what we
ignore
talked
the
about,
reality just because it's not ideal, right?
Right.
You can't bury your head in the sand.
Right.
It's like, all right, it's not where we want to be, but it is where we are.
Right. And
So-
you said right at the beginning, identify the problem,
Yeah.
and then we adapt.
Yep.
Right. And we
and come up
create
with solutions and bridge that gap.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Man,
it's
that's really cool.
It's cool.
Tell me again, policy, professional learning, and the other one was
And the other one is preparation.
prep for young teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now I say young teachers, however, we're geared toward career changers.
Okay.
So people who may have had a PhD and worked at Raytheon, who retire and want to teach secondary science, we're geared toward
that's
that,
cool.
because we say, you know, you should not divorce theory and practice. We don't think the best way to train a teacher is to sit them in a classroom in isolation of children. We think that learning on the job with constant feedback is the way to continuously improve practice. So we bring people into classrooms on day one, and we have 5 cohorts around the state, 1 in Metro, Denver and Aurora, and 4 rural cohorts. We work with the Mountain Ute and a charter school that we help them found.
Okay.
So that's really exciting work.
Yeah.
And it gives you a lot of hope, because you see that there are people who are still coming into this profession who could be doing absolutely anything and making all kinds of ungodly amounts of money. And they're choosing this because they know they can make a difference.
Yeah.
And that gives you hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the future.
Yes.
I know. I'm a hopeful person.
I am too.
There's a lot of bad things going on in the world, but there's a lot of good things.
Yeah.
The bad things get the news coverage. They get the headlines.
Right.
All the amazing things that
I know.
you probably get to see a lot of amazing things.
I get to see a lot of amazing things. I got to hear yesterday morning the new State Board of Ed members were sworn in, and that's hard work. God bless them. It's volunteerism at its finest. And I got to hear the story about the READ Act, because the State Board of Ed meeting followed the swearing in. And we were talking about how 100% of Colorado's teachers have now been trained in really deep pedagogy and how to teach literacy for kids with very varying learning styles.
Yeah.
We have schools where 68 languages are spoken, multi-language learners, being, you know, that body of research says that multi-language learners take 3 to 5 years to really learn a second language. So then as a teacher, you've got multiple languages being spoken in your classroom.
Yep.
And then that spectrum of kids and where they are developmentally learning English as well as learning content It's a lot. And I think it has actually helped to professionalize teaching.
Yeah.
Because it's a really high level of skill to meet kids where they are. And we heard this beautiful story about my friend's child who was identified in first grade as having a significant reading disability. He was in the first percentile, 6 years old. And by third grade, he was in the 60th percentile.
Okay.
He had received double remediation intervention during the school day, and he's being exited out of interventions,
nice.
right?
That's great.
So I get to hear stories about kids succeeding all day long, and I think just trying to pass along
That'll keep you going.
that'll
right?
keep you going.
On
There's
those
some
tough
contagious enthusiasm.
Yeah. Those are the
yes.
stories that keep you moving. You're
Yes.
like, all right, this is worthwhile.
Yes, sir.
This is worth it. This is worth the headache. This is worth all the traveling and speeches and communication and begging for money and begging,
Literally begging.
Yeah. Well, tell me something that you've talked a little bit about. Is there something else that you guys are doing right now or working on that you're really excited about?
I would love to tell you that. It's funny because I was talking to our CFO in the car on the way down here. Not using my hands because I know that law went into effect January 1st.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
I was about to report you.
Yeah,
Glad
let's
you
be
said
clear. Let's be clear. And he said, tell them that we grew 16% in the last 4 years.
Okay.
Like we scaled in the pandemic, and the average nonprofit in Colorado grew about 5.1% over that same amount of time. And when I look at why and what worked, because I think there's some interesting lessons there for all of us, it's that we met educators where they were and where they needed us, and it wasn't where we had ever been before. So we flipped to virtual offerings overnight. We did a 180-degree flip. We started using video technology where cameras could be watching a teacher's lesson, and we could give feedback to a teacher in Durango from Aurora, and we would say, at 1 minute and 49 seconds, that instructional move was brilliant. Tell me what you did and why you did it. So we just flipped everything on its head, and people said, okay, I still want you to work in New York, even though you can't get on planes and come out to us. Let's rethink how it looks.
Yeah.
At the same time that teachers are literally rethinking how it looks with 6-year-olds, right?
Yeah.
And that was, I don't mean to sound crass, but it was like the opportunity and the chaos for us. And that scaling has sustained so that I think a cool thing that came out of it was a friend of mine who works for Boston Consulting Group said, you guys are really onto something at a time when there's a big decline in the number of people coming into teacher preparation programs, and you guys are scaling. So BCG wants to come help. Boston Consulting Group is going to come help. They did $1 million of pro bono consulting for us.
Wow. When was this?
That was a year and a half ago.
Okay.
They came up with an entire roadmap, a market analysis. I mean, when does education nonprofit ever receive service like that?
Never.
So a big shout out for my friends at BCG.
That's cool.
And they said, these are
What
things.
a gift, huh?
Oh, it was such a huge gift. These are things you guys are doing really well in business development. This here you need to rethink. We realized a big hiccup in our business plan was we couldn't really do cross sales with the teacher preparation because in most states you have to work through higher ed in that state. So if we wanted to expand our PEBC teacher residency into the 47 states where we're doing professional learning, you'd have this bureaucracy to work through.
Because every state's different.
Every state's different to get approved as a teacher prep provider. So they were like, so that's actually not going to work as a clean cross sales, professional learning to teacher preparation, because you can't really scale teacher preparation in all the same ways. So it changed our thinking to, okay, well then how can we help? Like we're helping the University of Georgia right now. We're helping districts all around the country to start apprenticeships, to refine their own teacher residencies. Teacher prep, we're alternative. We're not the traditional route in, which is why we appeal to career changers.
Yeah.
So we just decided to let's take our learning and share it instead of trying to fold them all in to PEBC teacher residency. And
Yeah.
So now we're consulting.
Okay.
on that, and BCG helped us to rethink all of that.
Yeah, well, you guys had a natural limitation because
Yes.
you can't. It doesn't make sense to try to get certifications in all of those different
No.
states.
No.
Yep. I mean, hey, the United States isn't perfect. You
I
know.
know, we tried. Better than most.
Yeah. That's great though. I love that. That's good.
Thank you.
Speaking of funding, can you talk to me about where most of your funding comes from? A lot of it's from grants you mentioned.
I love that question. So we're about 50% grant funded, 50% fee for service.
Okay.
And what we do is we charge 150% outside of the state.
Okay.
Because every other state has more money than Colorado.
Sure.
Quite literally. And we charge 50% of cost here in Colorado.
Okay.
And
to offset that.
to offset that. Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have do you know about mill levy overrides?
Yeah.
Right? They're on all of our ballots.
Yeah. I have a house. So
You have a house. So you know the MLO.
I know. Yeah. We also, interestingly enough, I have 2 clients that are home builders here. And I've made videos for one of them explaining the mill levy because people were confused buying a house. They didn't know what it was, how to do it. So I made an explainer video for them. So
on mill levy overrides.
It's been a couple of years. So I'm a little rusty, but
I think your next series has to be about Tabor. How about that?
Yeah, sure.
An explainer series.
Yeah.
I love that because really we can look at the map and see where MLOs have passed and say, oh, okay, so that district could actually afford to pay us what it costs us to put on the professional development, whereas this district hasn't had a mill levy override in 20 years.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not going to get a dollar out of them.
No, we're going to charge them $2,500 a resident when the true cost of a resident to us is $20,000. Right.
Okay.
So it's kind of a sliding
Do you even
scale.
have, you're taking such a loss on those.
Yes, sir. And
So you're offsetting that with grants.
we're grants, the other
100 charging
states.
150. Yeah.
Yeah, charging
Yeah.
150%. And then we came up with a really innovative financing mechanism for the teacher residency, which I'm really proud of. And we're running a social impact bond, basically.
Okay.
It used to be called a SIB. Now it's Pay for Success.
Okay.
We are running it with Northern Trust Investment Bank out of Chicago, the Gates Family Foundation, and a donor-advised fund at the Denver Foundation. They all came in and said, we have social impact
They
money.
all come to you at the same
No.
time? You found them.
We went
You
to
connected
them.
them.
We
Okay.
went to them. I mean, I'm from New Jersey originally, so I drove a hard bargain when it came to interest rates.
Okay.
I think I happened to be sitting in New Jersey talking to the bank in New York that was offering me 7%. I said, I have 4 banks on my board. 7% is not a social impact loan.
Yeah.
That's a commercial rate. Northern Trust Investment Bank came and said, what about 2.5%?
That sounds...
$1 million to help with teacher retention. And if the teachers don't make it 3 years, you don't pay us back. And so what it did was it mitigated the risk to the district of coming in to the teacher preparation program for residency, which research shows us those are the teachers that get the most return on investment because they stay. They're retained.
Yeah.
Even a rural teacher, the cost of a rural teacher turnover in Colorado is $11,000, right? It's no joke.
Yeah.
And so...
Why is that? Because then you have to pay substitutes and you have to do the whole hiring process again.
Substitutes, the hiring process, the onboarding professional learning that you gave that person about Colorado state law, about your district standards and expectations. You train them on the new curriculum. They walk out the door. You start it all over again, right? And that's time as well as money. And so we thought, okay, let's go at this from a different angle. Let's go at it from an ROI angle. And we asked the Betcher Foundation to do a 1-year evaluation to determine, could we run one in education? Like, is it possible? And then the feasibility study came back and said, absolutely. And these are the districts that want to invest. And so our first in districts were in the San Juan Boces, the very far southwest corner of our state, and Aurora, because we said we need to do it and we need to show that it works in really diverse settings.
Yeah.
So the district
couldn't get much more diverse than
can't
those
get
two.
more diverse than this. The districts pay half of what it costs to train the resident. Then Northern Trust comes in with the other half.
Okay.
The teacher stays 3 years, and then the district pays us back as a pass-through. We pay back Northern Trust. They get their corpus back.
Okay.
So we're finishing our 3rd year.
All right.
And we're about to start an evergreen fund, which will be kind of like a 10-year investment based on the results of the successful Pay for Success.
Cool.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It's really cool because it's like there's got to be a way to innovate this to make it affordable to the districts who have the least, who need the most excellent teachers.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what Pay for Success allowed us to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
How big is PEBC right now? How many staff members? I imagine you got part-time interns. I'm sure you have I'm sure it's fluid, but give the people an estimate of how big your operation is.
Okay, people, we have about 50. We have 50 salaried staff. We have about 25 field staff who are just on planes in Kentucky, New York, California, delivering the professional development all over the country. We have about 100 and
Are they all based in Aurora? Are they all or in Denver? I mean,
that's a really good
your
question.
office is in Aurora.
Our office is in Denver on the Clayton Early Learning campus,
That's
which is
right.
fabulous. We have Head Start to our left and Montessori School to the right. It's
Cool.
like, oh, this is why we do this crazy work.
Yeah, when you're feeling down, you can just go step outside and watch, seeing the kids play
Just
and
hear
engage.
the kids, and the kids all have their gardening out there at Clayton. I mean, it's amazing.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, and then the residents, there's about 110 of them. We have staff who live in Connecticut, Arizona,
Okay.
Ohio. So that's just since the pandemic that our staff lives all over the country. And what we're doing is building hubs to become more efficient. So like if we're in Manteca, California, and of course this was a Boston Consulting Group strategy, so we'll give credit where
shout out
credit
to
is
them.
due. Shout out to BCG.
Hey, if someone gives you a good idea and you implement it, you get credit too.
Oh, you're very kind. It's kind of easy to follow the roadmap they left for us, I'll say. And my team is amazing. The people who are actually implementing the roadmap. So like when we're in rural California in Manteca, you just invite the neighboring districts to come and see the work, right? We put 22 people on a plane every month to that rural district in California. So then we want the 5 neighboring districts to come, and then we build a hub.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we've successfully done in New York and in Kentucky.
Okay.
California.
So you airdrop in somewhere, invite everyone to come see what you're doing, and then 2/3 of them want you to do that in their area.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden you've got an inroad with that whole community, that whole state, and it spreads like wildfire from that point on.
Right,
from
because
that hub.
it's not the people from Denver telling them this is good stuff. It's
Right.
the neighbors next door telling them
Yeah.
this is good stuff. So that's exactly right. That's most of how we get our business. The other way is we run a 4-day institute that is downtown Denver. People come in from all over the world for 4 days. And 2 of the days are spent in schools, in labs, just like you would do instructional rounds in a hospital. It's amazing. And that's how we picked
Is
up
it
Hawaii.
Clayton? Is that where you're going?
We actually,
Or
this is really funny, but we like to support the Spring Hill Suites down at the Auraria campus because the students run it. The students run the hotel.
Really?
students
The high
run
school students?
The culinary, the kids who are getting their degree typically at Metro.
Okay.
And I'm on the board of the School of Ed at Metro. And so we like to support the kids.
Sure, why not?
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about work.
They got to stay somewhere.
Got to stay somewhere. It's
Yeah.
work-based learning,
Yeah.
and you're supporting the kids. So we spend 4 days at Spring Hill Suites. People fly in from everywhere. And like an example is Hawaii flew in, and they did the Thinking Strategies 4 Days Institute in the fall. Then they sent more teams for the winter, and then they sent more teams for the spring, and then they said, you guys need to be on the ground helping us to implement this in Hawaii, and like my team was like, are you kidding me?
Volunteers tribute.
I'm in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have an incredible staff member who's been with PBC 20 years, Michelle Morris-Jones, and we said, yeah, you get Hawaii.
Oh, nice. Give it
convince them.
seniority.
Yeah, seniority.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
the
good that
other
you
way.
recognize that. Nice.
Yeah. You have to.
So then, how long do they go to Hawaii? How long are they on the ground wherever they go?
3 to 5 days. I mean, it depends on the depth of relationship. So something that's really cool, for instance, in Westmoreland, New York, is we'll go for a week there, and then they will send a team of teachers here to take institutes and offerings here. We'll be involved in their strategic planning, mapping out, the next 5 years, and then using the assets, mapping out their assets.
When you say assets, what do you mean?
So a couple different things. Yeah, it's interesting because
Is
when
it
I say
people
we're
assets?
people assets, investments that you've made, assets, outcomes are assets when you're looking at kids and what they can do and skills. Teachers are assets. It's funny because much of the board at PEBC is business. They looked at assets in the beginning of my tenure, which was 5 years ago, as like a balance sheet. And I was like, well, in a way it is.
Yeah.
But what we like to do is say assets are human capital.
Right.
And so when we walk into a turnaround school, for example, we don't go in with a deficit lens and say, here's all the crap you're doing wrong, because they know all the crap they're doing wrong. They're hearing it over and over and over. They also have chronic absenteeism and 3 kids in a classroom showing up by 8:30. So we go in and say, all right, but I see evidence of the READ Act instruction. 100% of the teachers I observed today were implementing the READ Act. Or that's evidence of an asset on the ground. You have a 25-year veteran teacher in your chemistry classroom. That's an asset. So we're going to put a teacher under her so that when she leaves, you have a succession plan in the building and all that knowledge doesn't leave. That's an asset. So when we map that out, a district feels kind of great.
Yeah.
They're like, you see everything that we've done, and we're not the people that come in and say, oh, here's a magic wand and everything you do sucks and we're going to start from scratch. We say, wow, you are undoubtedly doing so many things right.
That's good. So then you go, let's lean into all those things that you're doing.
Let's lean
good.
into those things. And it's our job to get ourselves
Let's
out of
duplicate
here.
them. Let's double them. So next year you have twice as many assets.
That's right. And let's work ourselves out of a job.
Yeah.
Where you won't need us in 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But there's enough. You're not worried about that because there are enough schools.
I'm worried about that. We got 178 districts. We're in most of them here in Colorado.
Yeah.
And the national work is really fun because it feeds us, it teaches us what's working in other settings, and then we can bring that back home to share with our context here.
Okay. Yeah. Are there other nonprofits, I'm sure there are, that are doing similar things in other states? Does every state have a PEBC equivalent?
It's a really good question.
Probably not.
Probably not. I think we're unique in the combinatorial influence that we have, because if we're in enough classrooms that we see a pattern, we can actually help to write a policy to address the working conditions, right, that are causing teachers to leave. So I think there are nonprofits in other states doing policy. There are nonprofits in other states that do professional development.
Yep.
And there are a lot of institutions of higher ed doing teacher preparation, right? Yeah. I think the unique combination is what's cool, because you can really impact.
That creates a lot
system.
of synergy, though.
Yes.
I mean, synergy, favorite word.
Yes.
But like taking and just going, hey, my policy team just talked to these people who were just at the school, and now we're meeting and talking about a policy solution to the problems that they found out about yesterday at the school.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And then what we say to that teacher,
and they're on the same team. They're, in meetings together all week.
They're meetings together all week.
Yeah.
And then we say, but you guys just launched a solution, so we're going to put it into draft legislation, and you're going to come testify.
Yeah,
we're going to train you up and make you confident and
give those teachers a voice.
And give them a voice.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
That is beautiful. Tell me about a recent policy that you guys have had are putting forward, and
yeah, that's a great question.
Maybe something in the last year or two that has had an impact on the community that maybe people watching this wouldn't know about.
Yeah, that's it. I love that. What I would say, Senate Bill 21-185 is the largest fiscal note that we've gotten through at the Capitol. I think that one thing PEBC worked with partners to bring to Colorado, which we have money in legislation for, is Teach Colorado. And that started 5 years ago, I think. A group of friends and I were approached by this organization, teach.org, and it was funded by Microsoft and the Schusterman Family Foundation. And it's a brilliant way to bring teachers in to any ed prep program across the state. And so we said, well, what would it look like if we put funders together and ask the state to put some money in legislation, and we'll house it at PEBC, and we'll see what it does. So that's like 200,000 hits on the teachcolorado.org page to this point. It's 30% of our own teacher pipeline at PEBC. I had people saying, why would you do that? Why would you create your own competition? So, I think you and I have different worldviews, because I think a rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And undoubtedly it has. And so
Because the goal isn't to be the most successful nonprofit. The goal is to get kids better educations, right?
That's right.
Yeah, it's like
That's exact. Thank you so much.
like
That is the goal.
yeah,
And so
to work yourself out of a job
to
where every
work
kid has an
yourself out of a
amazing
job.
education and you don't need to exist anymore.
No, that's exactly
Go
right.
do something else.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
So Teach Colorado, I'm extremely proud of. And it's the only region in the country that is run, by a consortium of partners.
Yeah.
So we all get together to do the executive director's evaluation.
Cool.
And we all get together to work on funding. And we said, okay, we need a platform for multilingual teachers. Okay, we need to raise money to get more early childhood teachers. So how can teach.org and the infrastructure they've built there, come into play here? And what's interesting, I was talking to the commissioner about it recently, Susana Cordova, who's an amazing educator and leader. She was the DPS superintendent for years. I knew her, and then she had a job in Texas, and we got her home, thank God, to run the state of Colorado's education system. And Susana said, I couldn't believe it. I went on to Teach Colorado, and I said I was looking for a teaching job, and somebody responded immediately, and she said, I thought it was a chatbot. I said, no, it's not a chatbot. Teach Colorado, we pay somebody in India to respond to you all night long, all day long, 24 hours a day. And so that feels good because we've brought resources, to a system that's running in times of scarcity.
Yeah.
And we thought, wow, we'll never be able to build here in Colorado what Microsoft has already built. So let's just get a consortium of funders together and bring it here. And, I'm thrilled with the results. And it's been a really fun collaboration. It's very humbling. Really smart people across the state are now helping to run it. And I've stepped back, and it's hopefully going to be here, when our grandkids are in school. It'll be helping recruit teachers into any ed prep program in the state. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Thanks.
I like that.
It's like a public service, right? It's not just for us, because we're not the right fit for everybody.
Well, in Colorado, we want to be competitive in the teacher market. As you said, we're underfunded compared to other states, so we have to get resourceful.
We have to get
We have a few things other states don't have, like mountains and lifestyle and good culture, and we need to lean into those things and also not miss opportunities to bring good teachers into our state.
Exactly right. And that's I think I heard yesterday, is it about 60-40 teachers that we're bringing in from outside the state? So we're doing a decent job of that. It's retaining them. We got to retain the talent. And that's where
is that because they can go get paid, make more elsewhere?
20,000.
Yeah.
If they cross any border from Colorado,
you go somewhere else.
20,000.
And the cost of living here is not helping either.
Family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And teacher housing has it.
Is that a thing?
It's a thing, and it's become such an issue we're getting traction.
Yeah, if a teacher can't afford to live in the community where they serve, that's an injustice.
Correct.
Got to figure that out.
Yeah, we have 30 teachers in Durango. About half of them drive over 2 mountain passes in the snow at night to get home, right? Because they can't live in Durango.
Yeah.
And we have really innovative districts like Eagle who have built teacher housing.
Yeah.
So it is a thing, and it's a retention strategy. It's wicked smart.
Yeah.
There are some districts where that.
Does that ever feel like subsidized housing? They're like indentured servitude a little bit, though.
I mean, I hope
as a
not.
catch-22.
I hope not. I think most teachers see it as a perk.
Okay.
Because there are lots of perks to teaching in terms of, man, you get to fill your bucket. Kids are hilarious. Hilarious.
Sure.
They say the crap that comes out of their mouth, and you are just on the floor laughing, right?
Agreed.
I mean,
I have 3 kids.
You have 3.
I have 3, 9-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Oh, you're in the sweet spot.
Yeah, they're. I agree. I think it's great. I told my wife the other day, I was like, if we could just pause this for 3 years, I'd be totally down for that.
Those ages.
I love it. I'm trying to soak it all in.
That's a dream.
Yeah.
Those are the grades that I taught. I mean, that's a dream.
It's great.
You want to write down everything they say.
They still like me, know?
Still like you, man.
They get excited when they
You're
see
a
me.
cool dad.
I know. I feel like I'm 3 years away from my 9-year-old wanting just Dad, drop me off at the corner.
No, but enjoy every minute, because then our 22-year-old graduated from college. And so I talked my husband into a puppy because I said, look, we're going to be empty nesters, yada, yada. And then she moved back in. So I got the puppy.
There you
and
go.
my kid.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah, I know. Your kids are at awesome ages. So
yeah, I agree. So
yeah, those are perks, right?
Yeah.
But they're not tangible. And so housing is a tangible perk where we can say to people, you can have a really joyful job. We're going to help you with the hard aspects of the job.
Yeah.
You're going to be so skilled. You're going to have such efficacy. Like,
Yep.
you're going to fail. But
And feeling qualified for the position too, and feeling like you have the skills and the tools.
Right.
You're given those things to be successful is huge.
So you nailed it. I asked a principal in Aurora one year why she hired our teacher residents year over year. And she said, they have so many tools in their tool belt. She said it's efficacy. And they're not afraid to fail, because if they try something and it fails, they just reach in their tool belt and they try 4 more things.
Yeah.
And she said that's
It's not, they're not a one-trick pony.
No, it's not a one-trick pony. And they're really smart and they're strategic and they know what works for one kid doesn't always work for another kid. And they're assessing constantly, informally about, what I learned today about where my kids are and how that shapes my instruction for tomorrow. And they're just not afraid to take risks, smart risks and safe risks,
Yeah.
but to innovate. And that's what makes it fun to teach.
And coming through your residency, they know a lot of other teachers they could probably lean on as well. Another asset, right?
The community. I mean, my best friend, John Gottesfeld, we were in trouble every day of our teacher training because we never shut up. We talked to each other above the kids' heads all day long. We might have lost a kid on Colfax one year, but eventually she was found.
And, they turned up.
He's in his 31st year of teaching this year.
Oh, cool.
And so, the community that we build in our cohorts, and I think largely because of the way we structured, it's very intentional. They're your friends for life. They're your family. They're the godparents of your children,
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
Cool. Awesome. Well, let's wrap up here. Why don't you tell people where they can find out more information about PEBC if they're interested? Maybe if you have needs that you want to plug, you can go ahead and tell people where they can find you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You can find us at www.PEBC, publiceducationbusinesscoalition.org. You can email me at S as in Sue, Sava, S-A-V-A, V as in Victor, at PEBC.org.
Cool. We can put that on the screen. So.
We'll put that on the screen. That's so kind. We do have an unfilled need right now. We're running a New Americans pathway. We have people from every continent represented.
Cool.
Lots of different languages being spoken, and it's a whole pre-year to get people skilled up and knowledgeable about American education systems before you plunk them into it. And we had a Spring Institute partnership, which we still are running, which is about English language development. We're doing wraparound sports with Dress for Success and food banks. And West Terra just gave us a laptop for every teacher in that pathway. Cool. But we don't have any funding for the New Americans pathway for next year. So anybody who wants to help sponsor teachers who are new to this country, you know where to find us.
Okay, so explain, that's teachers coming from other countries.
Yeah, they might have been PhDs.
They're just coming here to learn.
And they are...
And they're going to go home.
Coming here. No, they've moved here. Many are refugees.
Okay.
Immigrants. They were... university professors, some of them, chemists, physicists in their home countries. And they're saying, I want to teach science, but where do I start?
Yeah, okay.
Right? And so...
and people can sponsor someone.
People can sponsor someone. And we just had this incredible gift from the Carmel Hill Foundation. They came in and they said, what kind of books do the New Americans need that will help them to get traction before they go into your residency? And we gave them a book list, and they supplied all of the books for every single person in the New Americans.
People are so generous. I find when you tell people what you need specifically, they will meet those needs.
They will meet the needs.
If they can.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. Synergy.
Yes. Lots of synergy with you guys. Yeah. Awesome. Well, it's been great having you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. It's an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Cool.
Yeah.